Welcome everybody who's here to our Thrive Spotlight series. One of our lead trainers, Mo Berry, is going to talk to you about neurodiversity and the importance of awareness for managers. So over to you, Mo, take it away.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to mention it. It's Bury like curry. It gets everyone. I know it says Bury, it's written down that way, but everyone gets that one wrong. But thank you for joining us. And I appreciate that this is a bit of time that you've got to take out at lunchtime. But for me, this is a subject that's really important. So I've been working with managers now for over 20 years, helping people learn to be more effective, more creative, more inspiring managers and leaders. And the things I want to share with you today are hopefully going to help you do that even more. And as I say, for me, this is very important stuff. Management and neurodiversity. So it was a couple of years ago now, probably getting on for 4 years ago now, I came across this subject. And really, the first time it came up, it was very new for me. Before I delve into that, there's a couple of points that are important for me to make, which is that everyone is unique and everyone is an individual. Our identity, our personality, our personal preferences all come from our experience of life. And as you listen to this webinar, you will naturally compare your experience and your thinking around this subject. I can only stress that no two brains are the same. In fact, when you think that there's over 86 billion neurons in every single one of those brains, they're just never going to be wired exactly the same. There's too many possibilities. And that in itself is a great way of thinking. But please do forgive me if during this short webinar I say something that doesn't fit your experience or you think I've missed something out that's important. Feel free to get in touch with us at Thrive or get in touch with me over through LinkedIn. Because ultimately we're all learning. This is a subject that is ever growing and ever changing. And I am always open to new perspectives and new thinking around this subject. So just for this webinar today, your well-being is the most important thing. Again, I will be talking about my experience in relation to working with managers. But if any of that touches you in a way that's uncomfortable, please know that you are free to leave or opt out of any conversation. My role is to ensure that you're able to enjoy this webinar and actually listen to it for your own gain. And if for any reason I'm not doing that, please let me know. You are free at any point to just unmute and chat, or feel free to put a question in the chat or anything else that works for you, or just, let me know privately or in the group. It's whatever works for you in order to be able to communicate the best way that suits you. There are no such things as silly questions. I genuinely believe that if you have a question in mind and you feel that you need to ask it, then if anything, the silly thing is to not ask it. And there's always going to be somebody else in the organization, in the group, in the room, who's also thinking, oh, I wish I'd asked that, or that was a good question. So please do, this is as interactive as you're willing to make it. So why me? Why this subject? Why now? So who am I? I'm Mo Berry. I have been a sales and behavioural change trainer now for over 20 years. And I've worked with some of the world's largest organisations, which I'm very proud to have been involved with. I have 2 daughters. I am currently married, and I have a great dog called Jack, who is my inspiration in many things. My passion for learning has taken me in all sorts of different directions in my life. And most recently, this has been my subject of special interest, shall we call it. I first heard the term neurodiversity actually when Simon, founder of Thrive, got in touch with me and said they were looking for some more trainers because there was a big opportunity coming up. And I was just like, oh, yeah, great. This is interesting. What is it? So it's all about neurodiversity. And I went, oh, what's that? Never heard that word. And he explained to me that it involved individuals who were autistic, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia. And I'm embarrassed to admit now that at the time I went, it's not really anything to do with me. I don't get involved with people like that because, and again, I'm embarrassed to admit that I fell into the same trap as so many people, thinking that the stereotypes were true and that somebody didn't look autistic because they weren't like Sheldon out of Big Bang Theory or the Good Doctor. I might have thought that ADHD didn't apply to women. In fact, I did think that it was something that it was only like small naughty boys, wasn't it? And I genuinely just didn't know any better. Nobody told me, so I didn't know. It was a few years ago, and I'm pleased to see that awareness of this subject is definitely improving, but we're still a long way from where we need to be. And that has become my passion. We get these sort of neurodiversity or autistic awareness week, but they become a bit of a buzzword for a while and then they disappear and something else comes up. And it's a subject that, for me, when I started to learn about this and I discovered that, oh, this all sounds really familiar. I realized that I have an ADHD brain that is also dyscalculic. And when I started to understand the subject and started to learn about my brain and how it worked and what it needed, it was life-changing. Genuinely, it actually gave me the chance to put systems and processes in place to support what my brain needed. I stopped making the sorts of mistakes I used to make with things like forgetting things or being late for things, because I understood that my brain needed certain things, and if I put them in place, it made a huge difference. And that's what's made me want to share this knowledge. I focus mostly on managers because that's where my experience is, but actually this knowledge is relevant to everybody. In this webinar, obviously it's so short, I'm not going to be able to go into everything, and I'm not planning in this one to go into the detail of the neurotypes and language. We do that in our other webinars. This is more about an understanding from a manager's perspective, what could make a difference and why it's important. And I've had the good fortune to train over 350 managers for some of the world's largest brands in understanding how to work with, support, motivate, inspire, and sometimes, yes, performance manage somebody whose brain operates differently. Some industries, roles are more attractive to certain neurotypes. In construction, there are a higher proportion of ADHD. In the police, they have a higher, actually makes sense. ADHDers like to move and like variety often. There's more than an average proportion of autistic people in the police. And again, that makes sense. They're really good with detail and spotting differences and identifying patterns, which makes a lot of sense for that sort of business. So you may find that whatever your industry is, that you have a higher than normal proportion, whatever normal is, of a certain neurotype because it's attractive to that type of brain. But when I look back on my life as a sales manager, I realized just how many mistakes I made and what I could have done so much better had I known then what I know now. And that's really the thing that makes me, as I say, want to share this subject. So really, let's think about the reasons for doing this. Who should know about this stuff and why? I say stuff about understanding about neurodiversity, neurodivergence, and neurodifference. The first answer to that is obviously everyone should understand about this. We understand that if somebody's left-handed, we don't get weirded out by that because they're left-handed. It's fine. They just need the desk drawer on the other side or a pair of scissors that's different or a different power tool. But everyone should have a basic understanding of neurodiversity, in my experience, because I didn't and nobody told me. And I was like, why has nobody told me this? It applies to me, my family, my friends, and certainly some of my old team members. We know that at least 15 to 20% of your clients, your prospects, your employees, your suppliers, your investors are likely to be neurodivergent. And that's just because somewhere in the region of 15 to 20% of people are diagnosed neurodivergent. There's a very long waiting list, though. There's somewhere in the region of, depending on where you live, a 2 to 10 year waiting list to get a diagnosis. So it's going to be a lot more than 20%. We just don't know yet how many. And understanding this and having an awareness of this subject applies to everyone, because you might be working with a colleague who is behaving in a way that you don't get. It doesn't match your expectation. Maybe they take a bit too long to read things that you think is strange, or maybe they don't come to the socials, which you don't get. It's very easy to misunderstand or misinterpret behavior because a person isn't doing something that you think is, and again, I stress the norm, whatever normal is, but the sort of socially expected norms that we live with. The manager that gets frustrated because behavior like being late for meetings or getting distracted or not following instructions straight away when the manager's so sure they made it really clear in that very long wordy email and doesn't understand why they're not getting the results they want. Maybe that person doesn't process information the same way as the manager. So they're just not getting that communication. So how does it impact a team or benefit a team? One of my best salespeople in my corporate life was meticulous in following our sales process. He never hesitated to make a cold call. We all said he was fearless. I suspect, looking back now, he was neurodivergent, but again, I had no knowledge of this subject. I just thought he was a selling machine. But he didn't come to any of the social events. And actually, I would put into place competitions to try and motivate the team. And if the prize involved we're all going bowling or we're all going to do something, he always just missed the target. And yet every other month, he never missed his target. And I look back on it now and realise that he just didn't want to go to those events. So he made sure he didn't hit the sort of criteria, which is such a shame, because if I'd understood that, I'd have said, it's optional. You don't have to. You can have a bottle of wine instead, or whatever it is that appeals to you as an inspiration. And I just wish, again, I wish I could go back 20 years and understand what I know now, because I know I would have worked better with, and it wasn't just one, we had a number of people in the team that may well have had a neuro difference. And those are the reasons why they were so good. The ADHD who had absolutely no fear would go networking, could start and build every conversation, every relationship brilliantly, never hesitated to go and say, hi, who are you? Let's have a chat. And of course, that isn't something that might be comfortable for every neurotypical person. So it really is fascinating how these different brain types can make a huge difference, and they can do things that perhaps a neurotypical brain doesn't choose to do or wouldn't be as comfortable with. When it comes to team building, if you think about the team, a good manager gets to know their team. They actually think about the individuals in the team and what they have and what they need. And maybe I just wasn't a great manager, but when I look back on it, I realized that it wasn't that I wasn't trying. There was just information I didn't have. But if your team members don't understand different behaviors, perhaps that socializing and going to the team events is emotionally exhausting, they might think that person isn't a team player. If they don't understand that you're so literal in the way you process language, that you don't have the tools to read facial expressions or interpret sarcasm, hints or suggestions, then the team members might think that you have no sense of humor or you can't take a hint. And it's just, you just literally don't have the cognitive functional processing for those sorts of elements of human interaction. We all tend to recruit people that are just like us as well, which again, every training, every management thing I've ever done is recruit people who've got stuff you don't have. That's what makes a great team. And why bother? Why bother to take the time? Billions of pounds are spent every year on understanding people at a deeper level. If you're a manager, you've probably trained in insights or DISC, maybe buying styles or communication styles or leadership styles. And they're all really important and all really useful because they make us consciously aware of how to flex our approach and how to be more able to work with individuals. But actually understanding neurotypes and different brain types and different processing of information types, it's probably the best out of all of them, certainly from my perspective, because you can offer support in a way that the other models are more limited in. And without understanding that having a brain that works differently is the gift that keeps on giving, you actually could genuinely miss out on some wonderful possibilities within your teams. Brainstorming or thought showers, whatever we call them now, bid team meetings, strategy days. They're all looking for something fresh, some new perspectives, some new ideas, and something new. And there's quite a few fairly successful people like Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, Simone Biles, who's one of the world's most decorated gymnasts, or Greta Thunberg, who started a whole global movement, or Jeff Bezos, who created a different way of us buying things. These are all people who could see problems and opportunities in a different way, in an innovative way, because they think differently, because they process information differently. Now, I'm not suggesting that every neurodivergent person is going to be the next Greta Thunberg or Jeff Bezos, but I am suggesting that the skill or the ability to see things differently has real value if you can create an environment where that person's brain can be liberated and freed up to be able to be at their best. So where do we start? Beginning, generally, is the best place, I think. Job descriptions, job adverts, how we communicate what the job involves. The way your brand as a company is perceived. Do they see you as a neurodivergent friendly company that they might want to work for? Or are you not actually shouting about that's something that you are able to support? The way we word adverts, are we looking for a team player? But does the role actually need a team player? Or does it just need somebody like Aaron Turing who could just sit on his own and do incredible things? So think about the job description, how you're looking to recruit. Inviting somebody to an invitation. What can you do to reduce the impact of the way that invitation is sent out? It's an anxiety creating environment anyway, being interviewed. But can you do anything to reduce the anxiety? So sending out the questions in advance. If you think about it, why wouldn't you? If you want the best answers, give people time to think about it. And that's not neurodivergent people, that's all people. You've got information, you can consider how you're going to answer it, you can come up with some good examples. There's nothing wrong with that. And it gives people a time to adjust. The interview environment. I have stood in so many of these activity centres or assessment centres where we get everybody to get into a group and build a tower out of sellotape and newspaper. And the one with the biggest tower is the best team, and the one who took control is the best leader. And that's great if that's what you're recruiting for. But quite often the neurodivergent person is the one who stood at the back not speaking up, but can clearly see a better way to build the tower and can see what's been done wrong, but doesn't actually feel that they can have a voice. So they've got the ideas, they've got the creativity, they just perhaps don't speak up. And those are the people who get missed. And there's a tragedy because, again, sometimes these are the best brains for the circumstances, depending on what you're recruiting for. And yeah, allowing people to take off a jacket is fairly normal in an interview. But do you ever consider allowing people to stand up or put some fidget toys? I've got one here. It's always in my hand. I can concentrate better if I'm moving my hand. We don't call them fidget toys anymore, actually. We call them concentration tools because I think it's a much better phrase, or focus tools. But we're so much more able to be fully present in that meeting, or for some of us, if we've got something that we're able to keep that movement going. Sitting still, certainly for me, definitely not the best way for me to get out of my brain. I'm standing up now because I think better when I'm standing up. So think about the sort of job descriptions, the adverts, the environment, how you're setting up the interview, the information that you're sharing in advance, making it as clear as possible to let people know where they've got to come, how they get there, what happens when they get there, what the expectations are at that level of the interview process, what the dress code is. Please don't use smart casual. What does that mean? Literal brains will listen to that. They might put jogging bottoms on the bottom and a jacket on the top. But apart from anything, it's just a terrible phrase. So be clear and concise about what you mean when it comes to your expectations of that interview. And allow people a little bit of flexibility. How do you need to be in this interview for you to be at your best? You have my absolute free permission to do, within reason, whatever it is that you need to do to be able to focus so that we can have a really good quality conversation. And some people won't do anything, and some people might not want to break social rules, but at least give them the choice. That's the amazing thing. As a manager, we are often, whether you're working and managing a team that works from home, or whether you are managing and working with people who are coming into an office, or in many cases, that's the norm, is to have a bit of both these days. Have a think about the environment, because if you want the best out of your team, you want all of their brain cells at work. You want them to be fully attentive and focused. You don't want them to be absolutely drained from masking. If you're not familiar with the term, masking is when a neurodivergent person is trying to pretend or is trying to be perceived as, again, whatever normal is. So even though they really feel they need to stand up and move in order to make those phone calls, they stay in the chair because nobody else is standing up. So they're now going against what is their normal best state in order to appear like everybody else. It's draining, it's exhausting, and it really doesn't allow people to be at their best. Many neurodivergent people are highly sensitive. If you can imagine, everything is heightened for many neurodivergent brains. So everything's itchier, scratchier, louder, smellier, just everything's just more. We're also trying to manage that and bring it down and push it to the background, which also takes up more of your mental bandwidth and more of your energy. So have a think about the environment. Is it possible you can just make it a little bit more brain friendly? Could you remove the loud ticking clock, or perhaps put some shades on that really bright window, or allow people to wear sunglasses or a cap if the lights are very bright and it's too bright? And that suits everyone as well. It's not just for neurodivergent people, it's also for tired people and menopausal people and people who've got a hangover. Just by making it okay to use something to protect you from the brightness of the lights, that can free up more of that mental bandwidth to be able to focus. Open plan offices can be a challenge, but it's more bearable if you've got a quiet place you can go to. If you find that your brain is overwhelmed by everything that's happening around you, sometimes you just need to go to somewhere a bit quiet. In most businesses, in my experience, that's in the loo, which isn't particularly the ideal place to go and relax. But sometimes it's the only place you can just get away from things for a moment, or you go outside and sit in your car, or somewhere where you can just be quiet. I know somebody who sits in the lift or stands in the lift and locks the doors. They just shut themselves in the lift. Again, has an impact on the lift. So if you can in your business, create a space. Might be an old meeting room, or it could be an old cupboard. It doesn't really matter, but a place where people can just have a moment where they can get back to okay when everything gets a bit much. And again, this applies to all people. It's not just exclusive for neurodivergent individuals. Make it a place where it's a calm space. It's a quiet environment. There's nothing overly stimulating in that space. I did work with one organization where they'd made a quiet room, which was quiet from a sound perspective, but they put signs all over the walls and it was still like, oh, a bit too much. So yeah, just make a quiet space where people can go and relax. And the term we use is self-regulate. So just get back to feeling okay and being okay. If you've got people who are working from home and it's a hybrid environment, make it okay for people to do whatever they need to do in their home space to be able to concentrate and focus. Now, again, it's going to be different for everyone. I said at the start, no two brains are the same. It will literally be different for everyone. I struggle to work at home in a isolated space because I like a bit of background sound. So I'll have music on in the background that's got no words in it, and that helps me focus. You can actually get it on YouTube. There's some focus music, it's called, and it's just sound that helps me keep my attention in one place. But giving people permission to wear headphones while they're on a Teams call because they're listening to that music, but so low volume that it's not impacting on everybody else, can make a huge difference. Although if you didn't give that permission, you might be like, why are you wearing headphones? We're on a Zoom call. So thinking about how you can work with that individual to make it so that they can be at their best in the space. Providing breakout spaces, I mentioned, or quiet spaces. Be mindful of the bright colours and the patterns in the office. Allowing downtime between meetings. I know after COVID, we all started with the back-to-back meetings, but who thought it was a good idea to have them back-to-back without any kind of break in between? You need a moment just to let your brain reset and think, what was I just doing? What am I doing next? What do I need to do about the meeting I've just had? What notes do I need to make? So just allowing a bit of space in between meetings for people to reset, because we're never at our best when we're all full on. There's nothing you can do brilliantly in a state of stress and anxiety that you can't do so much better from a state of calm. So if a person needs something specific to help and support them to be able to be at their best, why wouldn't you make it available? Many years ago, somebody figured out that if you make tea and coffee available in the workspace, people focus more and they stay at work and they are more able to concentrate. So now in pretty much every organisation, there's tea and coffee available. That needs to be the next level of normal for neurodivergent people. What do they need? What is going to work for them? Because as a manager, what you want is all of your employees, all of your team members, brain cells to be working for you in return for a wage, rather than a big portion of them just being used up to be able to sit at work and do their job. And in some cases, just being able to get to work can be exhausting. One lady I was working with used to say, when I asked her the question, great question, by the way, tell me about your day and where the biggest challenges are, rather than what do you need? So I said, tell me about your day and where your biggest challenges are. And she said, actually, it's before I get to work. I get up in the morning, my clothes have been laid out, so I know what I'm going to wear. My breakfast has been prepared and put it in there the night before, so I'm sorted with that. The bit I can't control is the drive. Driving to work is utterly exhausting for me. There is so much change. There's cars and traffic and roadworks and people, and it's all so exhausting that by the time I get to work, I'm on empty and I've just got nothing left to give. I said, okay, what can we do to change that? So we talked through a few ideas and we realized that actually it was very manageable for her to be able to get the bus. She now gets the bus to work. She actually reads a book or does some crocheting on her way to work. She gets to work relaxed, happy, energized, and has got on so much better in her job and is enjoying herself so much more. So again, just be mindful of the fact that the challenges might be before or after a person is coming to work. Thank you for whoever's just sent that lovely heart. Oh, and I've just noticed in the chat, yes, Gabriella says that Spotify has got some lo-fi sounds as well, which is fabulous. But yeah, a lot of it's just permission. We talk about reasonable adjustments. They don't have to be, they can be technology or a screen or a standing desk, or those are all good reasonable adjustments. Sometimes it's just permission to say it's okay to stand in meetings. Feel free to use your concentration tools when you're at work. Those are simple things. Setting agendas, actually letting somebody have notice that this is what's going to happen and give them notice if there's going to be change. Simple things that cost nothing that can make a huge difference to a person's experience of being at work. So in my loud and shocking slide here, don't panic. When I've worked with managers, what I've realized is that for many of them, the lack of a deep knowledge of this subject is holding them back in lots of ways. Fear of saying the wrong thing. I can't talk to them because they're autistic and I don't know how to talk to somebody who's autistic. We're not talking about people with complex needs here. We're talking about people like me, people who you would be sitting next to. We're talking about anybody who will be in the workplace in many cases already, might not even know that they're neurodivergent themselves. And fear of saying the wrong thing. If I was wearing my glasses, would you not be able to talk to me because I'm wearing my glasses? But my glasses make me unique. My prescription is different to yours. If I take my glasses off, does it mean that you can talk to me now and tell me about the things I'm doing wrong now? And if you think about it that way, neurodifference is just a difference in processing information and the experience of life in a world that is perhaps designed for right-handed people and you're a left-handed person. When you think about it that way, there is no reason why you wouldn't have a conversation with somebody. Being neurodivergent isn't a license to behave badly or inappropriately or impact on other people. And if there's something that you're not doing in the workplace that you could be doing better with support, it makes sense to have those conversations. Sometimes people are afraid of the Equality at Work Act 2010 and what if I do something, I'm going to get the company into problems. Again, that's about learning and training. If you get the right training, you know how to manage people without getting yourself or the company into a sticky situation. But ultimately, just listening to the individual and working with them and trying to find out what's the best thing for them means that you've done everything you can, or maybe not everything, but you've at least tried. But reach out for specialist help. All of the charities have got resources, and many of them have got screening tools. There's all sorts of things that you can do to get support. Reach out to me. My details are on LinkedIn. You can find me, Mo Harford-Burry. Reach out to, we've got over 100 Thrive trainers now globally. specializing in this subject in the workplace, reach out to any one of us and we can help you. We can point you in the right direction if you're stuck. Because not having those conversations is unhelpful. I'll never forget an occasion. I was in a hotel reception and there was a wedding going on, and the bride and two of her bridesmaids came out of the toilets, and one of the bridesmaids has got her dress seriously well and truly stuck up in her knickers. And she walked through probably 20 or 30 people. As she passed me, I thought, that's terrible. Nobody said anything. I ran up and pointed it out to her, and she was embarrassed, but obviously delighted that I'd told her. But then she turned around and looked at the 20 people she'd just walked past, and she went, I won't tell you what she said. But it was suggestive of, they're not very nice people. One of them should have mentioned this earlier. And that's the reality, isn't it? If you're doing something that doesn't work for the workspace or the team, or it's just not right, if nobody tells you, how can you do better? And having those conversations in a way that is supportive and helpful, and actually trying to work with the individual's way of processing information and social interaction, you can always get better results, but it won't happen if you don't have those conversations. And again, if in doubt, reach out to one of us, to myself or one of the Thrive trainers, and we can support you in how to start those conversations and how to have them. But quite often it is just like me. I didn't know. Nobody told me this stuff. So I did the best I could with what I knew to be true. By learning about different thinking styles and different brain types and different ways of processing people's experience of life, and also learning about my own brain, what it's done is it's allowed me to have a different relationship with the people I work with that has been more supportive, but also more productive, more effective, more liberating, and actually more creative and innovative than I would have ever imagined possible, because I understand how people think. So you'll have seen many times in the past these different images about equality, equity, and inclusion. There's many of them out there. I wouldn't particularly specify any one, but think about the way you do things now. Is it the way you've always done things because you've always done it that way? Or is it because it's the best way? And whether that's motivating people, having performance reviews, setting targets, coming up with new solutions and innovations. There are so many areas of being a manager that would be easier if you had people who thought differently and actually were able to put their suggestions into the pot and actually come out with ideas. And all we're really talking about here in this webinar today is for you as a manager, looking at your team and thinking about who you've got. And please don't make the mistake of trying to diagnose. It takes a bit more training than a half-hour webinar or any of our webinars to be able to diagnose. But if you're looking at somebody and thinking there's a behavior there I just don't get, I don't understand why it is the way it is. Why is that person behaving like that? It is possible that they are processing their experience of life differently to you. In fact, it's almost guaranteed they will be, because nobody sees the world through the same eyes. But if you think about it, that, okay, this person isn't seeing things the way I see them, the only sensible thing to do is go and have a conversation with them. When you do that thing, I don't understand how you're thinking, or I feel that it's challenging my expectations. Can we talk about how we can achieve that result? Maybe it's not the way I see it. Maybe there's another way that it could be even better. And just be open to the possibilities, because that's one of the things that a neurodivergent individual can really bring to the party. There are so many strengths: the ability to process information, data accuracy or spotting patterns, creativity, wider vocabulary, natural ability to speak and present. Many of these are associated with different neurotypes. And if you join us on any one of our training events, you'll get a chance to go into much more depth about any of these different individual neurotypes. But ultimately, as a manager, look at your team, think about who you've got, and if it's at all possible, that brain is working in a way that's different to the way you should be, or that you're expecting them to behave or operate, then please just consider the possibility that it's wired slightly differently. A bit like an Xbox compared to a PlayStation, or an iPhone compared to an Android. Still brilliant, still gets the job done, but it's just wired differently. So I've reached the end of my sort of things that I intended to say for this webinar. It's a big subject, and again, we're trying to just touch on his ideas. At Thrive, we make the effort, I think it's every third Wednesday of the month, we'll put on different webinars for you to come in and have a look. If you go onto the It's Time to Thrive website, you can see lots of previous webinars on this subject. There is a smorgasbord of information out there and available for you to explore and understand more about the neurodivergent experience. And genuinely, I invite you to invest some time in that, because, as I said, there's a lot of time and money invested in understanding people through things like insights. But this kind of takes it to another level and can make a huge difference, genuinely, for the person's experience that you're working with in the very next day. So I invite you to learn more, find out more, experiment more, and get the brilliant results that can come from having a team that all see the world through different eyes. If there are any questions for those that are here, please feel free to unmute or pop them in the chat. As again, alternatively, if you want to get hold of me, my contact details are there. Feel free to, again, reach out if there's something I can help you with. I love to talk about this subject, so please feel free to reach out. And thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mo. That was very informative, as always.
Thank you to everyone for coming. This is a little bit shorter than I originally intended, but you know what? You've got some time back. Go and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you everyone for coming, and you will be sent the recording, and also our YouTube channel will host this and all of our other webinars as well. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.